Welcome back to the It's Your Story to Tell podcast. If you have not listened to part one with Julie, please go back. It's important that we understand the past so we can hear how she moved from one place to the place of leading and supporting families. Julie went from being the invisible child and trying to hold everything together, going through a divorce and being faced with having to make choices and choose the identity and the path that was meant for her. We're going to talk about that transformation that Julie went through. Thank you so much, Julie, for coming back and sharing this part of your story. And I hope it
Of
will
course.
inspire others to get curious about the things in their life that don't feel like they fit for who
Yeah,
they were created to be.
I love it. I'm so excited to be here.
What if your breakthrough wasn't found in striving, but in walking? What if clarity, healing, and direction came not in the hustle, but in quiet, intentional steps led by the Spirit? Sacred Pathways is a monthly walking mentorship designed to align your body, soul, and spirit with the wisdom of God. Each month, you'll receive 12 walking lessons. These are short teachings designed to be experienced on the move. You'll also get one live group session and access to a community of women committed to walking in purpose. This is more than a routine, it's a rhythm of renewal, a sacred invitation to process life with God, one step at a time. If you're hungry for deeper intimacy with the Lord, clarity in your calling, and healing that moves through your whole being, this is your path. Join Sacred Pathways and start walking in wisdom today. Now enrolling on itsyourstorytotell.com.
Well, let's start talking about how you began a personal development journey, which
Mhm.
led to personal healing. And I know when you've lived in this survival mode and being the caretaker, it can be really uncomfortable when you start trying to choose yourself. So tell us a little bit about how you experienced that and how you continue to move forward through it.
Yeah. For me, when um I had to have a actually another kind of trauma that came to me. And knowing what you know about my background with 6 kids, I had one of my children, I had a moment that shattered me. And that was as a mom of 6, and I had built my life around keeping my children close. I had even built childcare centers so that I could still have work and still have them close to me. I felt like the ultimate balance was going to come from being able to be a working mom while still keeping them present. The only way I was going to be able to do that was going to be able to open childcare centers. I have an education background anyways, but I needed to be able, if I was going to work, I needed to be able to have them close to me and have them in my environment. And I also wanted to have some control about who I was surrounding them with and who I was surrounding myself with, because I didn't have a strong support system to a family support system to help me to raise my kids. So I needed to surround myself with people who were going to be a great influence and be a good support system for me. So when one of my adult children told me without explanation that she wanted to separate herself from me, I felt like she was saying I was a terrible mother. And I felt my whole entire identity collapse. I had families all around me. Over 20 years, I've owned childcare centers, and I had families all around me who looked up to me as someone who is an expert, who I know and love and live the life of children and families. But yet one of my own children was disconnecting herself from me in a way that said, you're not worthy of being in my life. And then she got pregnant and had our first grandchild while she was disconnected from me. And it felt like a death, but she was still alive and around everyone except me. It wasn't the relationship that I thought it was going to be. I never imagined in a million years that was going to happen to me. And as painful as it was, it forced me to kind of look inward. I couldn't fix it. I couldn't explain it. And I had to look at myself. And it wasn't really about shame. It was really more about honesty. And the healing kind of had to start beginning there. After I was devastated, I had to kind of start figuring out, well, now what am I going to do? Because I don't have control over another human, and I can't let the situation have control over me. I still had other kids. I still had my work. I still had to keep moving forward. And I didn't know how to do that, but I did have to start figuring out how I was going to move forward without her and that baby in my life until
One of the hardest things that you never think you're going to have to ever do as a mother. In my story, there was a period of time that wasn't that long ago. It was in 2023 where my daughter decided that she wasn't going to have a relationship with me, and she had the assistance of her dad in utilizing the court system. And I had very little relationship connection for 2 years. And, she's in her teen years. Like, my kids were my everything. I couldn't imagine, like you, how do we end up here? This is my
it's your
worst
heart
nightmare.
outside,
Yeah.
it's your heart walking around outside of your body. Like, I can't, I can't even.
Yeah. And, I had just stepped into It's Your Story to Tell. It was the same month that I launched my website and my podcast. And so, like you, I'm like, wait a second, how can I ever talk about healing and the work of restoration and what God's doing in my life when this is the chapter
Broken.
I'm in my story? Where what credibility do I have? And I had to go inward as well and start
Mhm.
asking God to show me, what does he want me to learn and see out of this experience? I had to speak truth over the lies that I wasn't qualified. God, we had a humorous sometimes conversations, I guess you could say, because I was like, I just don't feel qualified. And he was kind of like, well, you're not,
You're
but I
learning.
am. But I am. And it's through me. And as he was showing me that this is spiritual warfare, like, this is not just about your daughter, but this is about you releasing truth. This is about you actually bringing healing. This is what you're called to do. And we think, at least I did, I thought, I'm obedient. I'm walking forward in what you have. And so it's all going to work out and it's just going to be easy. And one of the scriptures, and it was even brought to my memory this morning as I'm walking through some things as we're developing teams in different states for supporting people walking through these hard, complex issues. When the Lord was speaking to the disciples and they talking about how I laid my life down, I've given you everything. And he's like, I'm going to bless you 100-fold in persecution. At least me, we want the blessing.
Mm-hmm.
But can we forego the persecution? But the blessing and the persecution go hand in hand. And it's, how do we navigate these hard things? How do we stay close to God? How do we let him teach us? Because for a long time, I lived in a victim mentality. And in this very situation, it was bringing up abandonment and all of these woundings that I'm like, wait a second, I thought I had dealt with these. I thought I had forgiven. And there are always new levels that are being exposed so we can go to new levels in what we're called
Healing.
to do in this world. And so as he showed me, and it was excruciating, and it was almost exactly 2 years, we had a trial, and we were reconnected, and ultimately we were relocated, and all of these things that God worked out. And I'm seeing that the relationship is restored. So I like that you said not yet, because God has a plan. His plan is for restoration and healing. I had to die to my idea of when that was going to happen, how it
Mm-hmm.
was going to
How?
happen,
Yeah.
and accept that it may not even happen
Not on your
on this
time.
side of eternity. ultimately what God allowed me to see is that I had made an idol out of my kids. That I wanted so badly to protect them from the pain that I had gone through, that my well intentioned choices and keeping them close, and I didn't allow them to grow and flourish and develop. And I thought I needed to control everything. And so God has been putting things back in the right order, but it had to start with me, even though I was the one feeling this pain. So I don't know if that resonates with you,
Totally. Yeah.
but tell us about how you navigated
Yeah.
that experience.
Well, after I got over being devastated. Well, I didn't ever really get over devastated, but after I kind of started processing through some of those emotions and some of the way that some time going by, and I started deciding that I needed to do something. I started getting involved in some personal development endeavors, and it was terrifying. I started getting into some mastermind groups that were related to my business, and I started meeting people through that, and then going to their groups, and then going to some events. And for me, that was terrifying because done I'd had 6 kids. I didn't travel. I didn't do stuff. Like, I didn't leave them. I still have a ritual with my 13-year-old when she goes to bed every night, that she says a thing and then I say a thing, and then we both go like this. We both go like that before, I walk away. We still have a thing, and she's 13. I don't leave them if I don't have to. I stay close. And so it was terrifying, but it was also freeing. Like, when I walk into
Mm.
the airport and I get through security and I'm at the top of the escalator and I'm like, I'm here. I'm going to my gate and I'm early. And it's like I feel like I'm running with scissors. Like, okay, where? And you look around the airport and you're going, where are these people going? It's so exciting and curious. Like, where is everybody coming from, and where are they going, and what are they doing? And it's a crazy feeling, right? But I still had to wrestle with the fact that I was choosing myself, and it felt like some betrayal at first, and I didn't know how to really rest without feeling some guilt. And I didn't really know how to invest in myself without it feeling selfish. And my older kids didn't really recognize me. They're like, "You're going where? And you're doing what? Do you
Mm.
even know these people?" And I go, "Well, I met them online. I met them on a Zoom." And they're thinking I'm going to be abducted and taken away. And I'm going to Miami, and I'm going to Kansas City, and I'm meeting with this group, and I'm going on a retreat. And they're thinking I've really lost it. So when I started traveling alone, I started sitting with my own thoughts, and I started learning to trust myself. And what surprised me the most was probably this. It was that choosing myself didn't really make me less available to others. It made me safer to be around.
It's really profound. I would love for you to go a little bit deeper in what that means, because when you were talking about how you felt that you were being a betrayal, right? Which is very much what happened to you. You were betrayed.
Mhm.
And so it would feel very uncomfortable if the experience that was coming up was, well, I'm being a betrayal. And
Mhm.
that could, and for most of us, until you recognize that you're being faced with a wound and that you have to face it and get curious about it and understand it. If you don't, you're going to push away, and you're not going to do that because you don't want to do what was done to you. But
Right.
really, you weren't being a betrayal. You were actually loving yourself,
Mhm.
caring for yourself, expanding your capacity so that you could be healthy for others. So it's like this very counterintuitive process. And so when our nervous system freaks out, even
Yeah.
if it's good, it's saying, do not go any further. This is betrayal. This is going to harm people. And then you have to say, wait a second. I love dialectical behavior skills. So, two that I want people to know about, and then I want you to explain how you faced this and walked through it, because I think this is pivotal, because this is where people get really stuck. is they start doing this deep work, they uncover things, but then they can't move forward because our nervous system stops us, our mind lies to us about what's really happening. So there's two skills. One that you were doing is opposite action. So you've been responding to that betrayal feeling all your life. It has been driving your decisions. So if you want to listen to that voice, you actually have to do the opposite. And you may not even get it right. The opposite action is not about getting it right. It's about telling yourself there's other ways of doing this. And so you're going to try it and then you're going to see, well, I didn't like that. It didn't work for me. And then it's all information, not failure, which I used to say, then it's a failure. Then you just don't keep going. So again, remember, we're programming our nervous system and reprogramming it with every choice, with every thought, with every action. So then checking our facts is another skill where we're like, okay, is this really betrayal? And I need to kind of ask myself that question and look at it and say, no, I'm not betraying anyone. I just feel that way. Because feelings and facts most of the time don't line up. So tell me how you navigated that.
There are a couple of other things in there that I think were really helpful for me, and that is, and I think it's God's plan. It wasn't my plan, because I would have never thought of this on my own. I credit everything to it being God's plan, God's perfect plan, right? Because I don't claim to have known how to do this life. During that time, I met someone in these travels and meeting these people. I met someone who was an emotional intelligence coach. And that was when emotional intelligence started to become a new buzz kind of thing that everybody talked about. I'd never heard of it before. But while I'm amongst this group of people, this emotional intelligence coach person who was near, she was like, oh, yeah, well, this is kind of what emotional intelligence is. And I'm like, well, I don't do feelings. Like, I don't. And she goes, you're one of those. You're going to cry before this thing is over. And I'm like, oh, want to bet? Yeah, want to bet? I'll bet you $50. I'll bet you. I don't do that. And there's another lady there too who was saying, yeah, we don't do that. And so the two of us were like, I dare you to. It was just so funny. It was a challenge, right? That they were going to make us cry. And it wasn't that they were going to injure us. It was that there was something so deep and profound that was going to happen at this event. We became such close friends. And you know what happened at that event that made me cry was it was at that event that I found out that my daughter was pregnant while she was estranged. So darn right I cried. Wasn't because of anything they did, but darn it, wasn't fair. None of it's fair. So I did start doing some coaching with her, and I spent about 6 weeks of us doing some time together. And that was really important for me to learn and start to understand what emotional intelligence was, and understand that there were parts of that breaking apart of our relationship that I needed to be accountable for, and being responsible for my own words or for my own actions. And there were parts that she needed to be too that she wasn't. But I'm the adult and I need to lead that, and I need to hold it, and I need to wait, and I need to allow her to mature to the point where, she was 26 and her frontal cortex isn't fully developed. We could go into physiology and whatever.
And she's wounded, and she was wounded because we don't get out of this
her
life.
Reality. Yeah, whatever. Her perceptions are reality, all of this stuff. And I need to allow that to be okay. And I need to not take it personally and all of these things, right? And in my former self, in my own immaturity or my own lack of understanding, I would have just been like, what do you mean? And so that was important, and that was valuable for me to have spent time with her. Past that, I spent time with someone who was a burnout coach. Burnout coach. Well, what about that? Burnout coach, have 6 kids, you've taken care of everybody. And she's telling me things like, have you ever considered stopping and slowing down long enough to lean in to things that feel interesting, curious, they bring you joy, they bring you energy, they bring you happiness. And the concept that the world is a safe place, and you really are, if the world is a safe place and you are okay no matter what decision you make, and something is bringing itself to you that feels interesting and brings you energy and joy and curiosity, lean into it and see where it takes you. Open that door. Why not?
Mm.
Why not you? Why not this? Wow, craziness.
Yeah.
That was craziness, right? So that was a huge awakening for me as well.
Mhm.
So then to kind of move on from that, and it was at one of these kind of retreat events that I was able to, knowing some of these things and being surrounding myself with these kinds of thought leader type people, then I started realizing how healing was changing everything. And I realized that I had been leading from endurance instead of regulation, right? So I started asking things more like, what would it be like if people didn't really have to survive at work, at my work? And that's kind of how my best day ever mentality and framework was born for my business. So I mentioned earlier that my business has been in existence for 20 years, my childcare centers. And so as I started thinking about it at a retreat, I had a mastermind group that I was working with, and they all helped me to kind of contemplate, what if the staff were having the best day ever? What would that look like? Let's make a list. Let's all work together to think, what would it look like if you and your staff were having the best day ever? And then what would be the trickle down to that? If the staff feel valued and supported, and then they show up differently, then the children would feel it. Then the children would have a different experience, and they would go tell their parents, right? So then the parents now are having a different experience. The parents then would turn around and they would come back to the staff and they would start saying, "Oh, Miss So-and-so, my child came home and was telling me all about how you taught them, or you hugged them, or you loved them, or you snuggled them, or you reassured them, or you played with them." Now they're getting reinforced again by the parents. And so you can see the
Mm.
cycle of positivity and love and support and beautiful that's happening in my childcare center environment, where not only are the staff having the best day ever, but they've just created the best day ever for the children. And as parents, we know if our children are having a good day, that's creating the best day ever for us as parents, because we already feel guilty. Maybe it's just the moms and not discrediting the dads, but I can speak to what moms feel like, and we feel guilty when we are away from our children. And so then the parents are having the best day ever, and then we come in and we feed the hearts of the
Mm.
staff, and we continue to do this cycle of people having the best day ever. So it became more than a concept. And now it's shaped our culture and our training videos and our handbooks, and we have core values that support the best day ever mentality. So I've built externally what I was learning internally. So that's been
Wow.
super powerful, and it's been a beautiful thing to watch with my staff and my families. And it's something that childcare just doesn't do. It's not the mentality of childcare.
Wow. I just love everything you said, especially the part about regulation. And to be regulated, you do have to slow down.
Right.
And again, that is an opposite action for most of us because we are taught that success is based on our productivity. Like that's how it's measured. How well did you do in school? How well are you doing in work? So we're taught that we're always chasing the next goal, the next thing that shows that we have value and
Right.
that we are
Worthy.
successful.
Yeah.
Yes. Instead of I actually just have worth because I
I
am. I am
exist.
here. I exist. I was placed on this earth with a purpose and a reason. And that was a major shift as well for me. And I'm actually leading a whole group of nurse coaches right now
Wow.
through something because we're trying to transform healthcare, which is again, much like your environment in childcare, we're not doing it well and people are burnt out and that is precipitating harm to the entire system. And it goes
Yes.
beyond the system because those people leave the system and they take that with them into their homes, into their lives with their children, how they impact others. So I love what you're talking about. And it's all
Absolutely.
about going slow to grow fast. And I was just talking to my husband about this because in my life, I had spent so many years in avoidance and precipitating harm. And when I started to heal, my life started changing exponentially and fast.
Yeah.
So if you are that person that's sitting there and you're like, well, I don't want to look at all of that from the past because I don't know if I can move forward in my future, because that was me. I thought I've got to just keep pushing it down or I won't be able to keep going. In fact, when I slowed down and I faced it and I learned these skills, since 2016, so 10 years now, my life has changed to the life that I was holding so close to my heart, dreaming of, but feeling I could never have. And the impact that I'm able to create is because I changed, not because everything around me changed, my circumstances didn't change. After working through that, my husband got cancer. A house purchase fell through. We lost a lot of money. We were supposed to relocate and it fell through. I lost a job. I started this podcast. I had this fracture in my relationship with my daughter. All of that was going on in this 10-year stretch. While at the same time, I had the husband I always dreamed of and didn't think I was worthy of. My relationship to older kids was being repaired. They were seeing healing. Everything doesn't change overnight, but everything does change overnight. So continuing then to walk that out and recognize we are going to face hard things. How do we do it and how do we do it well so that we can learn from it and move forward and grow and then turn around and use it to make a difference? So you are doing this in your business, but you're also mentoring other people on how to do this so that they can have that same impact, which again multiplies and continues to multiply. So tell me a little bit about your mentorship and how do you work with people who are saying like, oh my goodness, I want this for my personal life. I want this for the business that I have.
Well, I don't want to leave the conversation without making sure that everyone knows that my daughter has come back into our family and she is a fierce, incredible mother. And we now have 2 grandbabies. There's another one that just turned 1 yesterday. My son has had a baby as well. And they both remind me every day that healing echoes forward, right? Our legacy is built in the willingness of walking next to each other and staying honest with each other. What I found was that my inner work is leadership work. So people don't heal where they're managed, they heal where they feel safe. So in our creating belonging and safety and communication, those are all parts of our core values. We make sure that we're not only doing this work every single day, but we do put it out there for other childcare leaders to be able to know about our best day ever framework. So I do have a coaching program, and julieamy.com is the website that we work from. And of course, there are a whole bunch of different levels of leadership work that I do with people. Sometimes it's just a 30-minute coaching call that's free that gives people ideas about maybe some things that they might be able to tweak to see if we're a right fit for each other. Or there could be packages of working together for months at a time or for longer periods of time, or building whole child care centers together to make sure that that culture and that foundation is built before you even get into the point of enrolling. Because really, even in a community, I'm doing a lot of advocacy work, even in my community, talking about how childcare is a part of our infrastructure of our community.
Yeah.
It doesn't even matter if we have water, sewer, jobs, housing, all of that stuff if you don't have childcare. So there's a whole nother portion of my work that is in civic leadership. But just talking about the childcare part of it, if we don't have a really strong and a really sound foundation that's built not only for our staff, especially for our staff, over half of my staff have been with me for 10 years or longer. I didn't know how I did that. I had to go back and reverse engineer it to figure out why. It's not because they're all my best friend. And anybody in childcare knows it's not because they get paid so much money. It's because they have a heart for doing work like this. It's because they're loving and caring people in the world who want to make a difference for small humans. And we need to make sure that we are also taking care of those caregivers that are taking care of those small humans, because it matters so much to the grown-ups that they grow up to be. They can't all be the invisible children, and we can't all be trying to herd all of the ducks to make sure to keep them safe from the bad things in the world, like I've been trying to do with my own children. We need to feed the system with lots of positivity and lots of expectations that are really solid in core values for us are education and communication and safety and creating belonging. And that's not only something that's important for our staff, but when you see it in action with our children, we're creating a safe environment for them to be exactly who they are and meet them where they are. But in this day and age, we need to also create that community type environment for parents and for families, because so many of our families don't have an extended family. I didn't have an extended family. I joke with my teachers that I pay them to be my friends because my staff are my friends and they're the people who help me raise my children. And I have more of a relationship with them, of course, than that. But I need those important people to influence my life and my grandkids' life. She loves them, and I couldn't do it without them. They can't do it without me, but I can't do it without them either. And we need to have that community partnership of our childcare professionals around us, and we need the continuity. Our kids need the continuity. And in order for them to stay, they need to feel respect and value, and they need to feel trusted, and they need us to give that to them so that they can then be those people in the world for those kids that we care for and those families we care for, because they don't always have good support systems outside in the world either. And that doesn't even have to mean that they're in bad situations. It's just that two working parents out in the world, they have such a juggle going on. And so if we can be the conduit between them having a really safe and high quality place for their kids to get love and care during the day while they're going and earning their living that they need to take care of their household, then that's what we're here for.
Wow. Thank you so much for being here with me. And you said healing echoes forward. And I love that. I also say healed people heal people. You are an example of someone who's doing that. Healing also goes into the past. And sometimes we don't think about that. But you said, and so beautifully, about healing caregivers. You were that person, and this work that you did healed that little child in you who was the caregiver, who had to
Yeah.
manage all of those things. So you healed that. You also, in talking about your daughter, and praise the Lord for being reunited and being able to work through that. It's so special, and it's hard, holy work that you do in those situations. But you also were able, and she was also able to heal things from her past. So healing is multi-directional, forward, backwards, and exponentially outwards to all of the people that then you get to touch. And I just think your story beautifully demonstrates that. If you are interested in connecting with Julie and learning more about her mentorship and her work with early childhood leadership and building a healthy culture, you can find her in the show notes. There is a link to connect with her. I also want to ask you to help us to get the word out. If this episode resonated with you, I can guarantee you it's going to resonate with 5 other people at least that you know who are wanting to live in their purpose. And Julie shows us how our pain leads us to purpose when we do that work of healing in our own lives. So please share that with others who could benefit. You don't have to carry this alone, and I hope you will find community. We're thankful that you are here in our community. I want to remind you that your story matters and your healing matters.